You've brought a number of children's books along with you. This time, the theme is a book within a book. Is that sort of a new idea in children's literature?
It's becoming more popular, and I think some of it's being fed by the current popularity of kind of literary detective stories. But it actually has been around a while, as you'll see from our first choice today.
And speaking of being around for a while, our first choice has been around for a while. The first one is Half Magic by Edward Eger, something that was first published back in 1954, something you read in first grade.
I did. I was a voracious reader when I was in elementary school. And I have to say, looking back on it, that this was probably my favorite book. It was so, I loved it so that when my teacher moved up to teach sixth grade and left the younger elementary school behind, she gave it to me, that copy. Not that copy, but my old copy.
Well, I have to say it looks advanced for a first grader.
Yeah, I might have been a little closer to second or third grade. So
Okay.
I hope I didn't exaggerate that.
Okay.
But it's a wonderful book, by the way, where the kids in the book find a magic talisman. But the thing that I found so cool about it was that they were on the way home from the public library, and they were kind of wishing something magical would happen to them, and that's when the talisman comes in. But they were reading a book by E. Nesbit, and I read E. Nesbit because of Edward Eger, and that was Edward Eger's hero. So it worked.
Okay, and here's the second one you brought. This is the Time Warp Trio, Knights of the Kitchen Table by John
Scieszka.
Scieszka.
As he says, rhymes with Fresca. Scieszka is a person of about my age who also read Half Magic as a kid and was inspired to go on to other reading, and he has spoofed children's books for years with his partner Lane Smith, including the famous Stinky Cheese Man. But these are the short novels that he's done of the three boys who find a book called The Book, and the book sends them on adventures just by kind of opening and talking about a place, and away they go. And they've also, as the kids in Half Magic did, gone back to Arthur's Round Table, and they've done all sorts of things.
Things that boys love, and of course there are great black and white illustrations.
Yes, there are. There's a very disgusting monster in the Knights of the Kitchen Table, whose body odors are described in magnificent detail. Perfect for the third grade boy.
This next one up is Magic by the Book. Nina Bernstein, a New York Times journalist, and this one won a Nonfiction National Book Award finalist.
This, I think that was her first book that actually won that, but this was her first children's book, and this was inspired again by Edward Eger and by E. Nesbit. 52 years later, the children in this book travel to 3 different places, but one of them is they help Robin Hood kind of complete the story as it was meant to be. They're not quite as crazed about going back in time. They love it. These girls are ready for adventure, and their little brother is too, whereas the other kids were a little bit spooked by it, I think, in the other books.
And this has great stuff in it about sibling rivalry, dealing with your parents, all the kinds of things kids worry about and deal with growing up.
Yeah, and it probably shows how things have changed even in the 15 years since the Time Warp Trio has come out, that there are more realities intruding upon fantasies.
And this is a book that a lot of people in your business are talking about. This is Walk On, A Guide for Babies of All Ages by Marla Frazee.
It's an example of that kind of book that is really designed for parents. And in this case, it's designed for parents of a child just about to learn to walk. It's an actual manual, a how-to manual for babies who, of course, can't use it at all. But it's done very tongue-in-cheek, and it's as if the baby's getting the advice. And for example, we have a section of it here. After a failure, a walking failure, you can try again, but first run down the checklist. 1, are your socks bunching up? Are your shoes too tight or too loose? Is your diaper weighing you down? And then fix whatever you can before you start over. It's very, very fun.
So it's walk on like rock on in a way.
Yeah, it is. It's the guide to how to get a baby off their knees, off their bottoms, and on their feet.
Okay, sounds like a good one. Now this one, John, Paul, George, and Ben. The Ben lets us know that this is not about the Beatles.
That's right, although I keep calling it John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Even this morning, I still called it that. This is a story of the peculiar habits of some of America's founders and how they translated into the great things that we know them for. The fact that George could not tell a lie. My favorites are that Paul Revere because he was in a bell ringing choir, talked very loudly. So you want that underwear in a great big size, huh? You know, things like that. And also Ben Franklin, who constantly as a little kid is telling all his friends, you know, friends and fish stink after 3 days. So his friends have a saying for him, which is, why don't you shut your big yap? But then all of their wonderful things that they did as adults in American history grow out of their childhood oddities.
The quality of children's books today seems to really, it's elevated, it seems, every year, and they seem to appeal to parents as much as to the kids.
Yeah, I think the best children's books have something in them for parents and for kids simultaneously. If they only go in one direction or the other, then you have books that some parents wonder, is this good for my children? Or you have books where the parents are laughing on the couch and the kids are going off to do something different. But if you can hit them both at the same time, and that's not easy to do, but if you do it well, and I think a book by Lane Smith like John, George, Paul, and John.
Ben.
Yeah, right, Ben, thanks. Works that way very well. So.
Okay, and before we go, what final advice would you give to parents about selecting books for their kids?
Find things that your children like to do, and then try to find books that start with that and then extend that. So there's something out there. Yeah, there's something out there for everybody, whether it's magazines about skateboarding too. When people say, oh, my boy doesn't read at all, or my girl doesn't do this, find what your boy and girl does do, and then find something in print or even an online e-zine or something that matches up to those interests.
Because reading is reading.
Reading is reading, yep.
All right, thanks so much for talking
with us. You're welcome, Patty.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.